Religion in the News, sponsored by Wish TV, in cooperation with the Church Federation of Greater Indianapolis.
Good morning, I'm J.R. Ryder. Thanks for joining us today for Religion in the News. Also joining me today is Reggie Barney, Carol Sissom, and Gabrielle Campo. News 8 reports on the cold weather and how to avoid frostbite. Our guests talk about having a heart for the heartless, a special women's event, and a mentoring program for boys. Stay tuned. A possible result of being outside in these strong winds and these bitter cold temperatures is frostbite. We've been checking in with the Wishart Hospital, and they tell us that they've had 3 cases of frostbite this week already. With temperatures plunging, make sure that you know how to avoid the pain of frostbite. Now, frostbite is pretty rare in this area, but it is dangerous, and when it's bad enough, victims can lose a finger, a toe, or even part of a nose.
Speaks from the heart as he encourages transplant recipients to keep the faith and stay hopeful. Let's welcome to the show Tracy Hardy. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning.
Tracy, you are just an amazing person right now. You just recently had, just a couple of weeks ago, a heart transplant. And
Right.
That's something a lot of people read about, but they don't really get to meet that person. And I just want to thank you for coming to the show. Just a couple of weeks ago, you were laying in intensive care, and now here you are. Tell us about your story.
Well, it started about 2.5 years ago in February of 2008. I got was told that I had a enlarged heart, which I didn't even know anything about that. And then as time went on, it got progressive, and it got to the point that I was faced against either living or getting a heart transplant. And the doctors at St. Vincent took real good care of me, and on January the 4th, I was able to get a heart transplant.
That's awesome. Now, how old are you?
I'm 34 years old.
You're just a young man, and I understand it was just a cold. How was your health when you were a child?
Well, when I was a child, it was fine. I had no symptoms. I basically got a chest cold when I was doing some work, and then what they say, it turned into viral cardiomyopathy, and it settled in my heart. And as that time, like I said, as time went on, it got progressive, and then it turned into congestive heart failure. And then within the last year, I got very, very sick. Okay. I was in the hospital in 2010 about 5 or 6 times.
Now, were you able to work during this, or did you just go on disability? What happened with your career? How did you handle it all?
Well, throughout the time of me being sick, prior to going to the hospital getting the transplant, I did work. I fought through it. Many days I was so tired. I mean, a tear might have dropped down for me having to get up because I was out of breath. I was weakened. But I fought through it. But then it got to the point I couldn't work. So then my fiance, Rachel, told me, "You going to the hospital." She basically was, you know, my angel to beat me in the head and told me, "You going to the hospital." So I went there, and that's when they figured out that my output was 5% reject. And for a normal heart is 60-65%. I'm at 5%.
That ejection fracture?
Yes, the ejection fracture was at 5%.
So you got on board with a cardiologist?
Yes.
And at what point did they say, we're going to put you on the transplant list?
Well, December, I believe December 8th was the day, but I had already been in the hospital probably 2 weeks prior to, and then they had put me on as status 1A. And I had went home, and I was going to try to, you know, they had me on what they called a PIC, which was an IV that was I was going to try to be at home. But I had got so sick it wouldn't work, so I had to go back to the hospital that same night. And they said, "No, we're going to have to keep you in. There's no way we can let you go home." So for 47 days I was in the hospital, you know, really fighting for my life. You know, God, I give the glory and honor to God. He actually protected me and kept me sane, actually, because 34 years old, you're in the hospital, you're looking at a heart transplant. It was really tough. It was really tough, but I got through it, and the doctors, like I said, they were great at St. Vincent, And then I got blessed on January 4th with a heart. Many times I got offered one, but it was either the wrong size, it wasn't the right compatibility for me.
I heard that you were offered a heart for a female, or it was just really tiny, and that it was rejected.
The first night I was there, the first weekend I was there, they said that it was 2 hearts that came in that it was offered, but they were too small for me because there's so many variables when it comes down to getting a heart, and they got to make sure it's matched, you know, all the variables and all the factors and stuff. But it was my time, and then yeah, the first 2 they were not compatible. And as time went on, a couple of weeks went on, like I said, eventually on the 4th, one came in that was perfect for me.
That was your day.
That was my day.
I'm curious about your faith, because I heard that you were in there watching like T.D. Jakes videos. I mean, what did you do all day? You're a young man and you're kind of tied to the bed with all the IVs. What kept you through those 32 days that you were in the hospital waiting on that organ?
The biggest thing was my family. That was my family. The biggest thing was my family. My family came up. My family from the South, Atlanta and Georgia came up. My sister from Alabama. My mom from Cincinnati came over. My phone calls. And like I say, my angel, my fiance Rachel, she was there the whole time. So my family was my biggest support. And then also, yes, my faith. Yeah, I was there watching T.D. Jakes videos. I was listening to Pastor Bill at Church of Acts, his sermons. That I got some of the church members from Church of Acts came up to pray for me. They brought me prayer cloths. Can I say, you came up, you and your husband came up to visit me just to say hi. It was a beautiful thing. I mean, just the support from the family, my friends, and my church that got me.
Now, I know you had 1,200 people in the state of Indiana,
Yes.
right, who were waiting on an organ at that time, and
Yes.
you got one. How did you feel when that call came through and you're going in that operating room?
Well, actually, when I first got it, it was just, I thought, how would I feel when they come and tell me? What would I be doing? Me and my mother was sitting in the room. I'm sitting up in the bed, and they came in as a team. I think it was like 6 of them, all the doctors and the administrators that came in. They said, "We have a heart." And I went through so many different emotions. I went through fear, sadness, happiness, joy. I mean, it was just a gambit of emotions that went through me. And at the end of it all, when I actually went down to the OR room, it was just somewhat of a sign of relief and also a little fear, because you're going in not really knowing. I have never been in an OR room.
Now, I know we got to wrap up here, but hopefully we can have you back to tell, because there's so much
yes.
more about your story.
Yes.
But you wanted to say something to all those other people who are out there waiting on an organ right now, because you received a miracle, but there's other people still waiting. What did you want to say to them?
I just tell them just to keep the faith. You know, when your time comes, it comes. You don't want just the next heart that comes. You want that right one to come, so you can't be like me. I've been out the hospital for just a week, and I feel like a new man. Be encouraged. Keep your family there. And those who have not tried to donate, go donate. You know, donate an organ because you're going to save a life. 1,200 people are waiting. There's over 110,000 people nationwide.
Great.
Someone needs your help.
Thank you. Thank you for your amazing story. Back to you, JR.
That's a great story. I'm Reggie Barney. My guests talk about a mentoring program for boys when Religion in the News returns.